Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Can you just give me a thumbs up sign or something? Yes? Okay. I'm Randhir Khare, and as you can see by my gray beard and my gray hair, I've been around on this planet for a while, but unfortunately, I'm still a child, and I still crave for people to listen to me. And I'm still very, very concerned about listening. Am I heard? Do I listen to people enough? And the more I think about it today, after my years of being a teacher and a mentor, I realize that the most important skill for a parent, for a teacher, for a mentor is listening. And listening in the way that a child is encouraged to speak. Listening in the way that a child feels comfortable in a certain space. Because until and unless a child feels comfortable, unthreatened, free to be themselves, until they feel that they are in control, you're not going to get them to say what they truly want to say. Now, I'll tell you that I grew up in a family of six siblings and myself. That makes us seven. So we had seven, actually six rowdies, everybody talking at the same time. And for some mysterious reason, I couldn't talk as loud as them. For some mysterious reason, I couldn't get through saying whatever I wanted to say because all of them, the rest of them, were more forceful. They could, express themselves better, and they didn't listen. So if you don't listen, you can carry on saying whatever you want to say. I struggled. I really struggled to get myself heard. In fact, at one family meal, when the entire family was there, one of my brothers put a tape recorder, old fashioned tape recorder, and taped it under the table to record the conversation, just as a joke. When we heard the recording after that, we discovered that there were 10 occasions in which I had begun to tell a story. And on all 10 occasions, I didn't finish it. I grew up for many years in my life. I grew up to at least till about 10, 11 years old, trying to be heard, trying to catch people's attention, trying to put myself in situations where I would be regarded as somebody who was saying something significant. And that had a great impact on me as a child. I became introverted. Of course, I was a very gentle, sweet guy when I was small. That's what the adults told me. But in fact, I was very quiet because I didn't get the opportunity for someone to hear me. And because I didn't get the opportunity for someone to hear me, I went inwards. I didn't perform well in school. My academics was miserable. The records and responses were miserable. And nobody really bothered. Everyone got on with their life because everybody wanted winners. And the winners were up there in front. And people like me were too self conscious to sing, too self conscious to paint, too self conscious to act on stage, and too self conscious to express my own opinion. I was headed for a life of loneliness. until, of course, I discovered my art, my painting, writing stories, writing poems. I was lucky. I was lucky that I found these which came out of me. I was a great reader, so I carried on reading and got inspired and looked for much older and more patient adults to hear me. Everyone else was busy. My parents were busy, my family was busy, my extended family was busy, my extended family was busy. So I honed in on much older people who had the time, the space, and the experience to listen to me. That's why perhaps today you find children get on very well with their grandparents. Now, I felt that I had a lot to say, but I didn't get the opportunity to say it. I didn't have very old people around me all the time. I didn't have patient people around me all the time. Now, this is not a complaint to the world. It's a real situation of a real child in the real world, which was busy listening to itself and its own voice. I grew up and I became a teacher. That was a big surprise to me. And as years went on, I became a mentor. And I felt that what I had to concentrate on most was to develop the art of listening. And it's taken me a long, long time, a really long time, to get to develop that art. So, what is the art of listening? If you ask me today, Randhir, what is the art of listening? There are four important features to listening to be a successful listener. Number one, you must be present. I've gone through it myself, so I'm sharing it with you. You must be present in the company of the person you are listening to. Now, when I say present, you must be all ears, all senses. You must be there. If you're not there, you will half listen. Number one, you have to be present. Number two, you mustn't be waiting to say something when there's a gap in the conversation. When the other person slows down, you add what you need to add. No, it doesn't happen that way. You have to be patient. Therefore, you have to be a patient listener. However energetic and restless you are as a thinker, you have to be patient. Number three, you must store. It's like, thinking on the move. You must store what that person is telling you. What are the key points of what that person's telling you? Internalize it. And the fourth, bring it back to the person in some way or the other to help the person to feel that you've heard them. Now, this may all seem very technical and in the air, but it's not. Take, for instance, if you're with a child and you are there, the child is there. Maybe the child is doing something completely different, and you're sitting in the company of a child who is drawing or painting or doing whatever they choose to do. And you open a conversation. The child may reply directly, may not reply directly. The child may begin to say something, and then leave a big gap. That is called speaking with silence. The child may ask a question. Be sure to make your answer quick so that they move on, because they are testing you. A child tests an adult, a child tests a teacher, a child tests their parents every moment of the day when they are in touch with adults. They're testing them. Are you listening to me? Did you understand what I said? Now, I have a young person who is an artist who comes to my mentorship studio, and she paints very well. She's very, very sensitive. She's around 12 or so. And like, but doesn't speak very much. And it's taken me 2, 3 years to get her to even to talk. Finally, I reached a breaking point where she says, uh, I don't want to paint today. So I said, okay, you don't want to paint? Um, I want to do something that maybe you're not comfortable with. I said, no, no, I'm comfortable with anything you're comfortable with. What do you want to do? I want to make some things with my hands. I said, okay, here's some clay, here's some aluminum foil, this is this, do something. And she began, and her hands were working, but her voice and her motions reached out to me. And while she worked on something which was nonsensical, she spoke from her heart without looking at me. But she was speaking to me. And she went on talking to me. She went on talking about many things, about her likes, about her dislikes. She laughed at her own jokes. I cracked jokes. And we suddenly found a tremendous breakthrough in our relationship. Now, how did that happen? And the first time when she came, she said, I like a space where I can work and I don't like people around. So I locked her up in the painting room, in the art room, and then she'd come out and sometimes show me her work, sometimes not. And slowly she came out of her shell because she was in a safe zone. So point number one, when you're interacting with children, your own children, make sure the zone is safe. Now, what do we mean by a safe zone? We have to create the right atmosphere. For example, with our posture. Now, if a child is sitting down and you are towering over a child and you're looking down and talking to the child and trying to be a good listener, that child's not going to listen to you. Why? Because you are towering down on the child. Yeah? So if you sit down, the same level of the child, become a child, chat about whatever the child is doing, listen to the child, even though it may not make very much sense to you, but listen to the child. Listen to the silences of the child. My own son, he hated reading. And when he was a little guy, he said, no, I don't like books. I want to be an artist, and my sister likes books. She'll read, you write books, and mama designs books. But I don't like books. So I said, okay, then let me tell you a story from one of the books. So I began telling him a story, and he began listening. And he listened on, and then I told him, okay, Raghu, you remember everything that happened in the story? He said, yes. I said, then can you tell me what you liked about the story? He gave me one sentence answer. I said, no, tell me something more. And I kept this exercise going. And the more I kept this exercise going, the more riveted he became to what I was saying. He had begun to listen to me. I had begun to listen to him because we were respecting each other's spaces. We were inviting each other into the spaces. We'd sit and draw together, we'd write together. I would mess around with him together. So as a parent, you have to create these spaces. You may be going for a walk in the morning, right? And the child would be running around doing whatever he's doing if he's a smaller kid. And you have to introduce topics, introduce the atmosphere around, introduce the trees, introduce the insects, the butterflies, the birds, anything, introduce this. Whether you think the child is listening to you or not listening to you. Introduce them. After a while, a child will talk at his own pace. My daughter told me when we went off in the greenery out there in the garden, and we were walking along, and I was talking about different types of birds, and she was listening. And I know she was listening and pretending she was not listening. Till she said, "Excuse me, Baba, are there fairies? Are fairies real?" Now, I could have given a very big explanation about their things of imagination or whatever. But she was a little girl of 5. So I said, "Yeah, if you can see them, they exist." "Oh, I can see them." I said, "Great. Then can you draw a picture of fairies?" So a child's reality and our reality, adult reality, are completely different. So when you engage a child, when you give that child that accepted space in which to communicate with you, you have to become a child. However busy your mind is, however preoccupied you are, you have to do that. And you have to do that in a sharing way. Now, what do I mean by a sharing way? Now, there are so many occasions when we can really, really spend time with our children. Many occasions we can spend time with our children, whether it's a morning walk or evening walk or listening to music together or dancing together. We have to be children if we want our children to understand us, if we want to hear the still small voice of childhood. If we don't go beyond ourselves, understand children, to be children, we will never be able to connect with our children. And we'll never be able to hear their true voice. You know, there's another matter. Very often we consider children, because of their limited life experience, to know some things and not know many things. And we do not challenge their imagination. We do not challenge their thinking. We do not challenge their emotional responses. We protect them from life. And in our tradition, in the Indian tradition, Indian subcontinent tradition, we do, because of our very old tradition, we do have this overprotective or nurturing attitude. And if we want to really connect with our children and share their childhood and help them to grow healthily, we shouldn't be protecting them so much anymore. We should be talking to them about many things, not protect them. Oh, no, you shouldn't know about war, you shouldn't know about disaster, you shouldn't know about that or that or that. They should know, but on their terms. I took my daughter out once because I was vegetarian, I was non-vegetarian, and she didn't know where a chicken came from. Yeah, she thought there's something which is called a hen and a cockbird, and there's something which is called chicken, which is served on a plate. So we went along, and I showed her. I said, we're coming to a chicken shop. Maybe I will order the chicken, and we'll go off. In those days, there were no broilers. We'll go off, and we'll come back and play. No, no, it's okay. She said, "I'll watch." I said, "No, you don't need to watch. Why? Why can't I watch?" So the chicken was cut, the chicken was prepared, and then she told me when we were going home in a very soft voice, and if I had not been a good listener, I would have missed it. First, it was a hen, and now it's chicken. "Don't worry, I know," she said. When we saw a dead bird on the road early one morning when we went for a walk, she said, "What's that?" I said, "It's a dead bird." "What do you mean by a dead bird?" I said, "It can't fly anymore. It's got no life." "Okay, so it's got no life. Now what's going to happen to it?" I said, "It will slowly disintegrate and go into the earth, and it will help plants and everything else to grow." So she said, okay, so it's not really dead. I said, yeah, true. We went home and she told her maid over breakfast, she said, do you know, one day you're going to be old. You're going to be so old that your body will start falling apart. She was 4 years old then. You'll start falling apart and slowly you'll mix with the earth and you'll get another life in plants. The maid nearly fainted. There are many instances out of my life, out of the children I've worked with. And if I had not, as a teacher, given them the opportunity, the right to speak, I wouldn't have heard the truth that came from them. So this is very important. Don't protect your child from the world. You will be disabling your child. You have to enable your child. You have to inform your child. Most importantly, inspire your child. Now, you'll wonder, where does listening skills come into all of this? It comes into it in a big way. You are connecting with your child. You are respecting your child. However small your child is, remember your child is absolutely aware in their own infant way, absolutely aware of the times whether you're listening or you're not listening. You take your child to a park, there are other kids playing, they'll go off and play. But it's critically important that you're sitting in that park. How do you know it's critically important? Because every little while, your child will look at you with the corner of its eye or her eye and say, yeah, I'm feeling safe. So sometimes we should not be overbearing and take over our children's lives. We should give them the space. And the more we tune in by giving the child space, by making the child feel significant, important, by helping the child to speak what they have to speak, the more they will express themselves in words, in actions, and in silences. Now, there are many, many ways for you to connect with your child, many ways for you to also build your own ability to listen. Yeah. So there are many games. I'm going to share them with you now. The first game is the game of a prompt. You say, okay, we're going to start making a story together. Would you like to make a story? Oh, I like the this story or that story. No, no, no. We are going to make a story. But I don't know how to make a story. Of course, you know how to make a story. Your head is full of stories. My head is full of stories. Come on, let's make a story. So I'll start the first line. So you start the first line. I say, okay, then what happened? The child will add to it. The child may stumble, the child may be thinking, but you have to be patient. It may take ages before you get your child to start reacting. Never prompt your child when you want your child to express themselves in a way that you can hear in a deep sense of the word and you can feel. Help your child. And say if your child's name was Dia. Okay, so make the main character in the story Dia. Late one night, Dia sat up in bed. She heard a sound which her mom and dad didn't hear. She's sure of it because her mom and dad didn't wake up. They were fast asleep. Her dad was snoring. Her mom was also snoring. So she sat up in bed and said, what is that sound? It's like a screeching sound. She went to the window and she opened the window. Okay, Dia. After that, what did she see? What did she see outside the window? Dia said, I don't know. Check. What did she see outside the window? She saw something black. Okay. She saw something black. What was it? Was it an animal? Was it a bat? Was it somebody who had come to teach you the art of magic, to turn ugly things into beautiful things, to turn beautiful things into ugly things, to make a pencil into a tree? Yes, Dia says. So, what are you doing? By sharing a story, even if the child takes one word, let the child take that one word, and you share the story and you go on. And when the story comes to an end, you recount the story. You say, this happened, and then this happened. And what else do you think happened? Let her think. By creating this energy between you and your child, you're creating a bond of understanding. And it's a very, very deep emotional bond, because your child is beginning to feel that you're regarding them as equals. Of course, no parent wants to be treated by his kid as if they're equal. But yes, in a deeper way, that's where self-respect comes from. That's where self-esteem comes from. When a child realizes that you are taking them seriously enough to listen to them, even if their words are stumbling, even if they have silences in them, because that is the beginning of good communication. And that is humbling for you. It became humbling for me in so many different ways. Once I was doing a creative workshop with children, yeah, and everybody was painting away. And there was one little boy who was staring at a big sheet of paper, and he had lots of paint around him and a big brush he took. The little boys usually take the big brushes, they want to do something big. The girls usually take the finer brushes with a little more detail. So I said, so Dashrath, what are you doing? I'm thinking. I could have easily interrupted him and said, oh, come on, what do you want to do? You want to paint a garden? You want to paint a beautiful peacock? Or do you want... I didn't do it. So I said, Dashrath, do you need any help? No, no, I'll manage, I'll manage. I went away and I came back, and Dashrath had the brush in his hand, like as if he had a magic sword. And he said, I am going to paint the wind. You tell me, Randhir, how do you paint the wind? So I said, well, you show trees bending this way and other trees bending that way. He said, no. See, I knew you didn't know how to paint the wind. I know how to paint the wind. Do you know how to paint the wind? I said, no. So he took some black paint and he took some white paint on the brush and he went over the sheet of paper. I said, wow, man, you've really painted the wind. Exactly, he said. I accepted what he had done because that was his creation and his way of telling me he knew something that I didn't know. And we as adults should sometimes accept and commend and encourage children when they come up with something which is original and want to talk about it. So I told him, asked him, I said, where's this wind been born from? It's amazing, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a magician, he said. I can create a storm, I can create a sea, I can create a yacht, I can create anything. I'm a magician with this brush. I said, well, very good. But now where's this wind going? So he thought, and he thought. He was not looking for logic. He would have said, okay, the wind is going over fields and going over a house and going over whatever. He took 15 minutes. The other children were getting restless. And he said, this wind is going to heaven. I said, oh, wow. And what's he going to do in heaven? And so he began to talk. And I listened to him. All the children gathered around Dashrath to listen to him telling us the story of the wind. All your child needs is the encouragement, that is, that you are a willing listener, that you want to listen, that you love to listen, that you regard whatever he is doing or she is doing, that is really worth something. That is very important. Now, the big trip ups for us as adults when we are sharing with children and trying to listen to children and understand children is we constantly provide our children with prompts. We complete their sentences. We want them to finish because and a lot of our generation is stuck on goals, stuck on the product, not the process. Listening has got to do with the process where we get from point A to point B. Listening has got nothing to do with the product that you finally achieve. It's to be able to enjoy that process you're going through. Very often, with my colleague Nadia, when we are working with groups of children, and we begin a story cycle, it's quite amazing because one child's imagination catches the other and it goes round and round and round and it doesn't need a prompt. And no child will prompt the other because children, by and large, have the levels of respect for each other that adults would never ever be able to achieve. Because we are constantly measuring performances. Someone else's performance to our performance, our children's performance to other people's performances, our marks, their marks with somebody else's marks, and we don't regard our children for the special beings they are. And that's very, very important to regard. So, respect is very important if you want to be a good listener. To be present is very important. To be patient is very important. Not to prompt is very important. And also, very important is to keep indicating to your child that you are listening. Now, how do you indicate to a child who's babbling on about the dragon which comes out of a hole in a volcano and comes flying down on the people in a town, and you're listening to the story? How do you reassure your child without interrupting that you are listening to the story? You could make sounds. You could say, "Oh wow, the dragon had red wings. I've never seen a dragon like that. Amazing." That's all you need to do. You just need to make little sidey comments. You just need to make sounds of appreciation. Another way of a game you can play with your child is to ask your child to tell you a story. What happened in school today? Anything special happened in school today? So, child will begin to talk and then not say certain things. Maybe the teacher told the child, or maybe someone else who's pretty cruel to him or her, and you listen. And the child is talking, and you say, "That's quite bad, you know. How could that have happened? How could that teacher have bullied you this way? How did this boy bully you this way? Really, you must have felt very bad about it." The child wants your empathy. And it's only when you're a good listener can you express and extend that empathy. So, empathy is another big word to connect with your child. Listening skills are closely connected with empathy, of regarding your child as the most special being in the universe when that child is in front of you. The more preoccupied you are when your child is sitting in front of you, the less you will understand your child, the less you will connect with your child, and most importantly, the less you will be a child with your child. Another good way of connecting, which I've done very often, if your child is lying down and drawing, a lot of kids like to lie flat on their tummies and to draw. You lie flat on your tummy and draw. Draw a picture together. Do a painting together. Work with clay together. eye to eye. Sometimes don't even look at your child. Keep making and watching what your child is doing. When the child is reassured that you think what they are doing is important enough for you to respect and be with, the child will begin to talk more with words and with their silences. The big problem is the different realities the child goes through. You see, one reality in the home may be the reality with the dad, another reality is the reality with the mom or the siblings or relatives. Then they go out, reality with their friends. They have to tune in to a different way of connecting, of being heard or not heard. Then the reality in the classroom. There's so many times children put up their hands to answer and teachers don't listen to them. Teachers don't even look at them. Or if teachers are looking at them, they're looking through them at kids behind them. So the child has to constantly navigate this complex world of listeners and non-listeners. So it's very important that we as parents constantly bolster the child's self-esteem to be able to deal with these variables in the playground, and different people at home, in the classroom. Unless you prepare the child to do this, the child would have grown up like me when I was a kid, of being underconfident, with low self-esteem, with unable to open my mouth in front of people, be undermotivated. If you want your child to be happy, if you want your child to feel that they're worth something, if you want your child to feel that they're heard, and if you truly want to hear your child, the child's words and the child's silences, you have to make an effort every time you are in the presence of that child. Remind yourself there are three things that I have to do. One, I must, as often as I can possibly make it, have eye contact with my child. As often as I can make it, let my child be silent. And don't prompt to prod my child to make the smart answers. Let them take their time in doing what they're doing. And the last is, don't let your child feel that you have expectations of them. The moment you free your child from the prison of expectations, they will begin to speak to you in the language that you truly understand. And that is bonding with your child. In the old days, long ago, mothers had a great way of doing that. Grandmoms had a great way of doing that, even granddads. But fathers struggled because fathers were out at work, and there were very few metro men around. And today, of course, moms are busy at work also. It's not their fault, but that's, one has to keep alive and things like that. So you have to program your life at home, not in a strict way, but in a way that when the child comes home, the home should be alive with receptivity, things for the child to do. So therefore, I believe, and I would like to recommend to you, that you have a lot of little activities that you can do with your child. You have to think about them because you know your child better than I would know your child. And to say, okay, we can draw together, or we can do clay together, or we can tell stories together, or we can do descriptions together. Or descriptions, you'd say, what are you talking about, Randhir? What are these descriptions? Sit out on the balcony, or go onto the terrace, or go out and say, okay, I'm going to describe the sky today. Look at the clouds, how beautiful they are. Don't make a big show of it, just say it. You have to go regardless of rejection. And it's beautiful. And what do you think? Do you like the sky better today, or do you like the trees? You will get a response. Take small things, small issues, easy to understand, easy to describe, easy to accept and express. When you do that, you are connecting with your child on equal terms. When you go out in the rain and you say, okay, you can mess around, you must be messing around with him or her. Otherwise, you would be the one in control, the remote control, the lawgiver, the jail keeper, but you're not the child. So we have to, with everything I have described to you, help the child to be completely connected with themselves and not be ashamed of being able to do something or not do something, to feel free and centered. You have to play a very important part in that child's growth. That's why you have children. You don't have children to say, I've had a boy and I've had a girl and I've got 6 boys and 6 girls or 12 boys and 12 girls. They're not numbers. They are alive beings. And what they have to say is very important to us because they are a part of us and we are a part of them. Now, I'll tell you a small story, a small story. I had a boy who used to come to my mentorship workshop, and his parents said, he's constantly telling lots of stories, and we don't know what he's doing, and we don't understand half of what he's saying. I said, but you listen to him. No, but we don't know what he's doing. We seriously don't know what he's doing. He tells us about some dragon and some nightmare and something else and something else. We don't know. And we're a little worried. Is he okay? He was a very restless child. He wouldn't sit still. So we sat down and we began to work together. And he worked with clay. And the most interesting creatures began to take form. He knew nothing about working with clay. I just sat and listened to him because I could hear his silences trying to figure out and talk about what he was creating. Until finally, he had created a number of these creatures. He said, do you know what this creature's name is? I said, no. He said, it's this. I said, where does it live? And he told me where it lived. And I said, what's that creature? And he said, that's what this creature is. And a whole magical world of words and stories came coherently pouring out of him. He became a great storyteller. He did solo performances as stories, and that same little boy is now talking in a language everybody understands. He's writing a novel, and he must be about 10, max 10, maybe going on 11. Our children are wonders. If we care to exercise our listening skills, we would be able to hear and see the beauty that is inside them. Now, I've shared a lot with you, and I don't believe that there are any hot tips here, like really burning hot tips of if you want to be a good listener and connect with your child, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, and this is what you have to do. That will not help you. What will help you is to be comfortable with your child. And think of everything I've just told you. To open you up to your child, to make your child feel appreciated, expressive, with high self-esteem. So now I would like to ask you, if do you have any questions? Do you want to know anything? Maybe may you say whatever you would like to say in response to what I have said. All right. So I assume you have absorbed what I've said and you have thought about what I've said, but I want you to begin to experiment with a few tips I have given you, if you experiment, if you try it out on your child, I'm sure your child will teach you the art of listening, the art of perennially being young in spirit. I would like to close by saying that opuskids.in, visit us. We are doing a lot of exciting things. We are mentoring children to become whole, to be happy with being themselves. We have a whole creative self development course online and a lot more. We have tailor made courses for children depending on the sort of time they have available. We want to help you to be happy with your own parenting skills, to be engaging, to be adventurous, and most importantly, never forget that in your heart, you are still a child. And the moment you forget that, you're aged and your life is behind you. So you be a child and help your child to grow, express themselves. So opuskids.in is our website. Visit us. We'd be happy to receive you with open arms. Thank you.